They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Occupy Trump Tower, the wokesters, the anti-Semites, they are back. Welcome to another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
Man, oh man, this story has really blown up. So the story of Mahmoud Khalil, who is a person who is here on a student visa. He was a student at Columbia University. He has an allegiance or identifies as a Palestinian. He married an American woman, but has become someone who has taken over buildings on campuses. He's organizing people with the message that is pro-Hamas, anti-Israel. And he was arrested. After his arrest, the Trump administration said that he was going to be deported. Well, the left has absolutely lost their mind, Katie, and they say that this is a freedom of speech issue, that he can say whatever he wants. And the latest today, as we record this podcast, is they have even occupied Trump Tower in New York. You can see there the images. It is a lot of people, a lot of mayhem, a lot of banners, a lot of chanting. They want this guy released from jail. And Katie, I think, look, there are a lot of people that say a lot of things. And even if I don't like it, even if I hate it, I will stand side by side with them for their right to say it because I'm an American first. But the problem with this Mahmoud Khalil is that he wasn't just saying hateful things. He was actually organizing people. He was committing crimes. And that's in direct violation to a student visa that was given to him by our country.
Yes. Okay. But at the same time, I think it's complicated by the fact that he is married. So if that's true, he's an American citizen, which means he has more protections. I think what they really have to go after is his criminal behavior in inciting some of these riots and whether the marriage is actually legitimate or was that a marriage of convenience? You know, we've seen this happen so many times, right? That people will get married just to get the visa, just to get the citizenship status. But, you know, I have to point out about that demonstration, you know, it's always a sign that it is an organic grassroots uprising when you see everybody in the exact same T-shirt.
Exactly. Everybody was just so overwhelmed with anger. They just showed up at Trump Tower all at once. I know, with banners and printed T-shirts, all on theme. Mm-hmm.
There you go. But, you know, I think it's pretty clear that this guy is being paid by somebody, is an organized activist. I thought it was super interesting that it turns out he was working for the British Embassy for their office in Beirut, Lebanon for 2 years. What's that all about? I think there's a lot of interesting things that's going to come out. One person alleged that they were able to identify that Mahmoud had visited Obama's house in D.C. 5 times. Again, that's not from a super solid source, so I kind of hesitate to go out there with that. We'll see again. Is that coming true? But, you know, part of the problem what this points to is the bigger problem with these pro-Palestinian protests. And you know, I've been following this for a couple of years because of the book that I wrote, Next Gen Marxism. So my co-author and he had a special relationship to this, Mike Gonzalez, because his son was a student at Columbia when these demonstrations first started happening. But Mike and I dug really deep into the ties between the Palestinians and the American Marxists and Black Lives Matter. The pro-Palestinian movement has been involved with U.S. radicals and U.S. Marxists for years. They had a very big presence at the Ferguson protests. And I think that, you know, one of the things that came out, or, you know, some of the information that came out after the protests in the months after the October 7th massacre is that there is millions of dollars pouring into these student groups to organize and to create these demonstrations. And that's what we have to dig down into. This is one person, but it is a much bigger problem.
And I think those funded protests are absolutely right. And if you can get 100 people in a room, the media takes off on that and makes it seem like it is a gigantic movement. I was really shocked just to see the support and the outcry of support from Democrats, particularly those elected in the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. You had Dick Durbin out there saying free Mahmoud Khalil. You have these Democrats who, and what's so notable is that just a week ago, we were together talking about President Trump's speech. And, they don't stand for the kid who gets into West Point. They don't stand for the kid with brain cancer. They don't stand for the mother who lost their kid. They don't stand for the woman who lost her husband. They don't stand for those people. But what do? They're shouting on the rooftops to protect Mahmoud Khalil. And I think it's really telling about where they are. And I think it still boggles my mind. I mean, I hate to say it because we have seen it over and over again, but Democrats finding themselves on the wrong side of every issue, not standing with America, standing against America. And it's just, even though I should come to expect it, it still is so surprising time and time again that they choose this as their fight.
I think ultimately they're going to be really shamed by this, because I think things are going to come out about him, about Mahmoud Khalil, that it's going to be very embarrassing for the Democrats who are speaking out in his behalf. But I want to say one other element to this story that I think is very important, and I'm glad that this story is bringing this out, and that is the degree to which our universities have been kind of taken over by foreign students. You're starting to see, a lot of people are coming forth with the statistics. The one that I saw was somebody was saying over half of Columbia University students are foreign. I did not see the actual numbers on that, but I did say that out of 13,000 undergraduates, 5,000 are from foreign countries. And I think it's where you add in the graduate students that you start to see that number get up to 50-50. And a number of people have posted on X. They've gone in, dug in, because schools are proud. They're very forthcoming about the percentage of their students that are international. And it's just shocking how our universities have become filled with international students. And I think many to the detriment of the United States, whether it's Chinese taking our intellectual property, whether it's, pro-Palestinian, anti-Americans coming and drumming up demonstrations. These are not all people that love this country and that are grateful for this opportunity to come here and learn here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And they're getting warnings. The Trump administration is doling out warnings to a lot of these schools to do better at protecting, because when they are cashing tuition checks, they're promising a safe environment for students, and not every student is getting that safe environment, especially if they are Jewish, sadly, these days. I mean, they are really the targets here. All right, so that is one story that's been going on. We also have a resurgence of some Democrats all volleying to be the new leader of the Democrat Party. So already, Katie, we know that the California governor, Gavin Newsom, is interested in being president in 2028. He's launched this new podcast. He just had a really incredibly interesting talk, by the way, with Steve Bannon, who is his most recent guest on the podcast. But you also have Pete Buttigieg, who now says he's not going to run for an open Senate seat up in Michigan because he thinks he might be interested in running for president. Rahm Emanuel, from Obama fame, Chicago nightmare, he's thinking about running. It's almost certain that he's going to jump in. And we heard from Tim Walz, former vice presidential candidate, who burned it up so much as vice presidential candidate Tim Walz that he's now out on the road. He's going to take his act on the road. I'm sure Ticketmaster is going to break because people are going to be so excited to go to these events. Here is Governor Tim Walz. Take a listen.
I'm going to go out there and make sure that those folks down in Iowa know that their rep doesn't want to come talk to him, but he voted for this stuff. He voted to defund these things. He voted to make it impossible to talk to the VA and cut 70,000 people to care for our veterans. By the way, many of those 70,000 veterans themselves. So I think, again, this is us going out and talking to people, making the case that people are absolutely clear that both parties are not the same. One stands with Elon Musk, the billionaires, and the dismantling of America as we know it, and one that's going to be there for their families. And if we're not out there, Donald Trump, all the podcasts, all the money will fill that void. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going. And if they ask, I'll go. And look, I hope people show up at that town hall and say, look, Governor, what are you offering? Are you offering anything better? That's fair. But not to turn your back and not do it, it's dangerous. Dangerous.
Let's just be real. One party stands for using the government as their personal piggy bank. The other party
Ching.
stands for exposing it and actually having respect for the American voters. The biggest joke about Tim Walz, aside from Tim Walz, is the fact that he thinks people don't see it. I mean, and we're seeing it everywhere. I thought it was so interesting, the story you had for us, I think it was last week, about the member of the California Assembly who exposed the $25 million a year of COVID funds that are going into political NGOs. Now we're seeing it hit in Virginia as well. So we've just had the government of Virginia in Richmond exposed for spending $10 million on NGOs without any audits, no nothing. We're seeing it exposed around the country. Americans see it. They see the corruption. So, Tim Walz, you go talk to whoever you want.
I just think it's funny that he thinks anybody in GOP districts, like, they're going to go see you. I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure if you went to like blue Los Angeles, you couldn't get people to go see Tim Walz. I just don't know that he's a huge draw. I will say his self-tanner is looking really good, though. He looks very healthy and vibrant considering it's March in Minnesota. But, look, take it on the road, do the town halls. I was listening to Bill de Blasio. I know he's back. I don't know what he's back for. Maybe he thinks he's going to run for president. Former mayor of New York was on Fox and Friends actually this morning, and he was doing an interview. He was on Fox. Maybe it was later in the day. But he was doing an interview, and he said, the problem with the progressive movement is that they started working for the donor class and not for the middle class. And I thought, as much as I disagree with Bill de Blasio, that is absolutely right. They were going with these far left extreme ideas that they thought would bring money into their party, and they lost touch with the American voter. And it's an uphill climb to get it back, especially if voters start to get results from what President Trump has promised and he's delivering on. So we'll see what happens.
And I think another super, super important point is the fact that I think they have been further isolated from American voters by all the shenanigans that have been going on with their finances.
Yeah.
So they haven't had to depend on appealing to voters and getting their donations. I mean, Act Blue, the fundraising mechanism for the Democratic Party, has utterly imploded. We've already got a whole congressional investigation. They're calling for an investigation on the Senate side as well. I think we're going to see some shocking news come out of that whole story. And the fact that so much money, I think, was going into the Democratic Party and into, various candidates, as well as left-wing news outlets, from these government grants.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when you take all that away and the Democrats suddenly are having to rely on the American voter? They're going to have to go on a big old diet.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. I mean, they're going to have to really cut back and figure out. I think they're going to have to rebuild. I mean, you have to really rebuild from the bottom up. All right. So we talked about Tim Walz. We talked about Khalil. We actually have one story you just brought to my attention. John Solomon, who I think does great work at Just the News, released a story. And you would think that we were done with the secret emails and all of that maybe we would have learned our lesson after BleachBit and Hillary Clinton. But apparently we've got more emails and more personal emails that have been sent back and forth between Biden and Obama. What was the story here from John Solomon, Katie?
Yeah. So what he's saying is that briefing materials that had been prepared for President Obama, along with subjects and times for the White House Situation Room meetings, which are classified about sensitive conversations with foreign leaders, were forwarded to Joe Biden's private email when he was vice president. So this is a new tranche of documents which are turned over to Just the News by the National Archives. What I don't know and what I'm really curious about is, why have the National Archives turned it over? And did President Trump manage to put new leadership in there? And that's why this is coming
I know
out.
Who it is.
Oh, you do?
You know who's in charge of NARA now is Jim Byron, who used to be the head of the Richard Nixon Presidential Library. He's actually a friend of mine. He is great. He is brand new. He just got installed, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago. So that might actually have something to do with it.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, the National Archives had gone pretty woke. And so I thought there's no way they're releasing that information. I'll bet you money. I wonder if it's in the story, but I'll bet you money that's why this this information is coming out now. Wow, what else can we look forward to learning from
And
the
isn't that what's
archives?
great to actually have, it just feels refreshing when you realize that there are people, and granted, it's someone I know, but somebody that I know is a really good guy and a solid person who's going to be in charge there, who is going to do the right thing. And, that's what we need. We don't know. And at least these people have names. I love the fact when you can actually name the person who's in charge of something, because I think for a really long time, people in high positions have lived in shadows and they're able to kind of operate and nobody really looks at what they're doing. So I think
Hey,
we're
we
going to
got
see
to get
some
him on
big
the
changes.
podcast.
You want him? I can get him for you. He's amazing.
I would love it. Well, I mean, I just think the National Archives is a really important treasure. We are coming up on our 250th anniversary, so I think it'd be great to talk about that. And I'd also love to talk about, here are the plans for, how are they going to be celebrating the 250th? And then, of course, I want all the salacious stuff about
all the dirt
finding.
You know what? I will reach out to him. So hopefully soon you'll get him on another episode here. He's great. Jim Byron's a really fantastic guy. Young guy, too. I mean, he's like a young prodigy. Anyway.
Wow.
All right. So that's exciting. And, it's not so. Well, I'd say this is actually more Trump winning. So we've already established that President Trump has closed the border. We've already established that he's arrested more people in just, a month and a half than Biden did in the entire fiscal year of 2024. People now are even starting to self-deport, including comedian Rosie O'Donnell, who has decided to pack up shop and she has decided to go to Ireland. And Katie, when I saw this video that she released, I was like, oh my gosh, we have got to talk about this for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're not going to play you the entire video because that was 4 minutes and literally torturous. But she disappeared off social media and actually decided to come back on to announce that she was leaving America because I think she got upset that no one realized she was even gone. So let's take a listen. Here is Rosie O'Donnell on why she left the United States in January.
And I'm here in Ireland, and it's beautiful and warm, not physically, it's actually quite cold. Moved here on January 15th, and it's been pretty wonderful, I have to say. The people are so loving and so kind, so welcoming, and I'm very grateful. I'm in the process of getting my Irish citizenship, as I have Irish grandparents, and that's what's going on, and that's where I've been and what I've been doing. And although I was never someone who thought I would move to another country, that's what I decided would be the best for myself and my 12-year-old child. And here we are. Here we are. I miss my other kids. I miss my friends. I miss many things about life there at home. And I'm trying to find a home here in this beautiful country. And when, it is safe for all citizens to have equal rights there in America, that's when we will consider coming back.
Oh, isn't that nice?
But it just really shows you how insane Trump derangement syndrome is.
It's real.
That you can embrace it, and it can be that consuming of your entire mind and being that you would leave behind your children and your friends to go somewhere else. Oh my goodness.
First watching through this, and I tortured myself and watched the whole video. I couldn't do it to you guys. I just couldn't. I appreciate all of you too much. But first, she's swallowing really hard. So then I wondered, do they have water in Ireland? Because it seems like she's a little thirsty. I just don't know what's going on there. She mentions that she takes one kid, but she leaves the rest of her children behind. So she's so angry about President Trump that she had to leave behind her children, as you mentioned, her friends, everything behind. I guess you'd have to say, I don't know how much of a career she has left, but she leaves behind her career to go to Ireland. And then I started thinking about Joe Biden, and I started thinking about Barack Obama. And I started thinking to myself, Katie, never once And look, a lot of celebrities have threatened it. So I guess the one nice thing I can say about Rosie is at least she went. She wasn't like Barbara Streisand, who just keeps saying she's going to leave and then never does. So at least she followed through. I will give her credit. But as bad as I thought things were with Joe Biden, and they were about as bad as I've seen in my lifetime. I was a baby when Carter was born, so I didn't have to live through that. When things under Barack Obama happened that I thought were ridiculous, never once did it occur to me that I should leave our country, because I believe that our country is the greatest country on the planet. I believe we are blessed to live here. And I believe that if we think things are going wrong or in a different direction, we stay here and we fight and we try to make a difference every day. And because I'm in California and you're in Virginia, we talk about that all the time. We live in states where we're not the majority opinion. But what do? You don't just leave. I mean, some people have left California, but I stay and fight, and I try to do something every day that's going to improve or say something or inspire somebody so that we do something to make a change. You don't just give up on something that's as wonderful as America. But that's what they do. Their hatred is so, I think sadly, it's very simplistic, that they just want to crumple it up like a piece of paper and throw it on the ground and walk away. And I don't know. I hope she's happy in Ireland, but it seems pretty ridiculous. And I thought it was extra special that no one knew she was gone, which is why she had to do this TikTok video to make sure that she let people know that she had moved. Otherwise, no one would have even cared.
It's just insanely self-serving also. If you think things are not in a good way and you're just going to go somewhere where you can be safe and comfortable in your own little bubble, it's ridiculous. But this has been kind of really on my mind because I was just writing a letter to people that are sort of in my orbit here in Fairfax County, encouraging them to become members of the Fairfax GOP. And to be part of this effort to be involved and to fight for the good, right? To fight for the common good. And I was saying in my letter to people that I spent 35 years of my career in national security and international relations. And it was finally after 35 years, I realized the problems that we have are not going to be solved in Washington. They're going to be solved ultimately. Yes, it makes a huge difference who's in the White House, but ultimately it's going to be solved in our local communities. And so I walked away from my career and I said I was going to get more involved locally. And I didn't know how. I just was a door knocker for political candidates. And then, of course, ended up becoming chair of the Fairfax GOP. But part of what's been so fun for me about this work is that as hard as the last few years were, and as much as so many people were discouraged, I've met so many people who said, I love this country. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to put aside what I've been doing, or I'm going to put aside my retirement, my job, whatever, and I'm going to get involved and I'm going to try to fix it. But no, if you're Rosie, you just go to Ireland and then sit in your little bubble.
I think it's funny that she also said, I'm not coming back until things get better. So I'm not sure what she's upset about. Maybe it's $1.85 a dozen eggs. Maybe it's lower gas prices. Maybe she really doesn't like that we're going to bring American jobs home. Maybe she doesn't like that we're actively now trying to kill terrorists again. Maybe she doesn't like a secure border. Maybe she doesn't like, I don't know, a little more safety and security in the world. Maybe she doesn't like the end to the Ukraine and Russia war. Maybe she doesn't like trying to get our hostages home. I don't know. But maybe that kind of stuff just doesn't appeal to Rosie O'Donnell. I'm not sure. What I've seen so far, though, pretty darn good. All right. I have one more thing for you. The show Love is Blind. Are you familiar with that?
I am not. Tell me all about it.
Love is Blind is a dating show that started during the pandemic, and it's a Netflix show. And so because everybody was home during the pandemic, people really loved this show and everybody kind of talked about it. It became sort of a cultural thing. I was kind of a slow adapter. I've watched 2 seasons of it. The first season I liked, second season I thought, and so I didn't really keep up with it, but it's had several seasons now. And the premise is that they have a group of men living in one area. They have a group of women living in another area. And then they have these pods, these little rooms in between these 2 areas. And so women will go sit in the room on one side and separated by a wall. So you can have a private male-female conversation, but you never see who you're talking to. You just talk to basically the wall and you try to get to know someone without taking into account their physical appearance. So it's sort of a social experiment. You can go and switch up. You can meet different people, or you can stay with one person. When you finally reach the point where you think that this is the one for you, you actually get to see each other face to face. You, of course, get to go on a vacation together somewhere tropical because, it's reality TV. And then you live together for a short amount of time and then finally decide if you want to get married or not. So it moves very quickly, but the premise is that you get to know each other so much without physicality that you know each other better than most. So in the most recent season of Love is Blind, they are towards the finale where they are making decisions whether or not to get married. So Sarah and Ben have gotten themselves all dressed up. They've walked down the aisle in front of their friends and their family. And the big decision is upon us. Ben is ready to marry Sarah, but Sarah, not so much. Take a look.
I love you so much. But I've always wanted a partner to be on the same wavelength.
Uh-oh.
And so today I can't.
All right. So poor Ben, you see everybody's kind of shocked and dismayed. Jaws have dropped open. But why? People are so curious. What happened here? It seemed like things were going well. Reality TV could have created a perfect loving partnership. Well, Sarah walks out and she goes and talks with what I think are her mom and her aunt, maybe, about just what led to her leaving poor Ben all by himself.
I asked him about Black Lives Matter, and I'm no expert. But when I asked him about it, he was like, I guess I've never really thought too much about it. That affected me, especially in our own city. How could it not? How did it not make you think about something? I asked him too, what his church's views are, and he said he didn't know. And so then I watched a sermon online.
From his church?
About, sexual identity.
Okay.
And it was traditional. Equality, religion, the vaccine.
The vaccine. So, Katie, this brought up in my mind. First of all, I have a little thought here. I think she saw Ben and Ben was not her cup of tea. And so I think maybe
the same thing.
Because she's a really beautiful girl and Ben's Ben. And so she was probably like, oh man, I need an excuse to get out of here. But to use the vaccine and for full disclosure and for context, they are in Minneapolis, the scene of the George Floyd riots and all of that, kind of ground zero. But to go into the Black Lives Matter thing, and apparently she has a gay aunt or something, they were really appalled that this guy didn't think about gay marriage every single day. I mean, this poor guy, can you really marry someone that is opposed to you when it comes to religion and to politics? I think that's the question. Can you have different opinions and still have a good marriage?
I mean, this is what worries me for our culture more than anything else, is that I feel like men are going one way and women are going another. Now, I know that's not entirely true, because when I looked at the numbers for how young people voted for Trump, in the end, many more young women voted for him than was expected, right? So I don't think all is lost, but there's been a lot of talk about the divide between young men who seem to be getting more conservative and young women who are just going wacky woke. How are they ever going to have decent marriages? They're never going to want to marry each other. They're not going to want to be together. That to me is a concern.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting because you've had stories of successful relationships with people on different sides of the political aisle, but things have gotten so extreme, especially on the left, that I couldn't be with someone who was out marching for Black Lives Matter. I just couldn't do it. Okay, maybe we have a disagreement on one issue or another issue. That can actually be kind of fun and spicy in a relationship. But when you've actually got people who are out there marching and holding signs, I'd be like, oh, check, please. Can't handle it. It's just, I don't know. That just made me think that this is a greater question. How do people work around big differences? And especially when it becomes religious, and she's looking at stuff that he might believe in his faith and in his heart, and then,
to be kind of mocking it. The way she says,
they
I
laughed.
Church, and it's traditional. Oh my,
the horror! I know.
So I think he's well out of it. I'm relieved for his sake. He's going to go find a really nice young woman, who adores him, who shares his values. I think he's well out of it, and I think that woman can go join one of those wine drinking lefty women's clubs
Yes. Where they wear the pink hats on Saturdays and drink Chardonnay on Saturday nights is perfect.
Exactly.
Well, good for, I think Ben at least has nothing to be embarrassed about. I think Sarah may look at that someday and be a little squeamish, but there you go. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. So we went through a lot of stuff happening. Don't forget, you can get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, available where you get your books. And of course, you can find her online at katiegorka.org. You can also search her out on Facebook. Just search for Catherine Gorka, and on X at Gorka Katie. You can find me on social media too, Jennifer Horn Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and Jennifer Horn on X and on Truth. And don't forget to keep up those 5-star reviews and share Happy Women with your friends. We always appreciate it. Subscribe and check out all of our platforms at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Happy Women. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.